What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review the collaboration mixtape between Slim Dunkin and Debo, who's also known as Derez Deshawn. Basically, this project is called Block Illegal, and it came out in the spring of 2011. And the thing about this particular project is this is the debut project by Debo, Derez Deshawn, as he's also known. He's also known within that particular pitch. But back in like the early 2010s, when he was a part of Brick Squad Monopoly and that type of stuff, and when he was affiliated with Slim Dunkin and some of those type folks, he was known as Debo. So I'm going to refer to him more as Debo on this particular mixtape, but I would have to say this is a pretty dope project here. This is kind of like a pseudo kind of original material from Slim Dunkin. This is one of the last projects that Slim Dunkin put out of like full-blown original material, before his death, I would have to suppose, but still a quality one. So basically in late 2010 Slim Dunkin dropped a mixtape called Menace to Society, which I reviewed back in late 2022. That's a pretty quality mixtape, so I definitely recommend that. But that was some original material, had some hits on there like I'm a Bugatti and I Gotta Eat and some of those type ones, and Swisher and Dunk Remix, some of those particular type hits. Definitely some pretty quality type stuff. It came out the same month as Waka Flocka Flames, Flockaveli, which basically Slim Dunkin was one of Waka Flocka's main wingmen back in the day. I'd have to suppose pretty good concept to get that one in particular, but those came out in the same month, so it was a pretty boisterous time around that particular pitch of a time. But after like holiday 2010 and stuff, Slim Dunkin came back to the scene. So after 2010 ended in early 2011, Slim Dunkin put out the next project that he was going to do, which was Block Illegal, but he put on a new cat, which was basically Debo, a part of the Dirt Gang project that Slim Dunkin was manifesting throughout 2011, and that Slim Dunkin was manifesting throughout 2011 and that type of stuff. And the thing about Dirt Gang is actually a pretty dope fact about it. They dropped at least two mixtapes in Slim Dunkin's lifetime, which is a particularly dope concept, I would have to say. And Debo really started to establish himself later on. Debo, when he became Derez Deshawn, got some hits. I forget what the name of one of his hits was, but he had a charting hit off of his Pain album, or Pain 2 album from 2017. He started to really manifest later on. He didn't manage to manifest within Slim Dunkin's lifetime, but he did have a number of projects with him throughout 2011 as far as that pitch kind of happens. I'm definitely going to review more Debo down the road. In between, like he was known by a number of names. He was known by Debo. He was known by a number of names. He was known by Debo, he was known by D-Dash later, and then he was known by Derez Deshawn. So we're going to get to some of those projects as time goes along, but this is a particular hit. This is definitely a particular hit Slim Dunkin project, I would have to say here. It's got some good quality stuff on here, just a good boisterous of extra amount of hits, plus this has a number of boisterous hits on here, plus some leftovers from the Menace to Society project from late 2010. So it's a dope enough concept. It does a pretty good job of establishing Debo. This project does a pretty good job of establishing Debo, I'd have to say. Pretty good concept, get that in particular. I feel like some of the songs on here, like Slim Dunkin kind of gets some new hits off this particular project when it compared to some of his hits off of Menace to Society, which he got a number of hits off there, like I was saying, like songs like I Gotta Eat and I'm a Bugatti, Swisher, some of those type ones, the Dunk Remix, some of those type ones. There's some other ones on there that I can't really think of, but just some pitches like that. I Go Ham was a pretty nice one, just to kind of say that there is some of that spillover on this particular project, but there are a few established hits. Like I feel like NyQuil, I feel like the solo Slim Dunkin song NyQuil is one of Slim Dunkin's best songs around this particular time. I'd have to say definitely a pretty good original type song to get here. It's definitely a secret little hit that hits pretty heavily. I had to suppose just a nice lady song to kind of get. And then there's some ones on here like This is a pretty nice one, despite the fact that Slim Dunkin's not full blown on that song as much. He's on it, but he just has a smaller verse. Then I would say Nick After Nick is like a real highlighted one. But the thing about this particular mixtape is just the fact that it doesn't really focus on drill that much. Like Waka Flocka around this particular time in early 2011 was huge, just with the boisterous popularity of like Lex Luger and Hard in the Paint and some of those type songs, just the drill type sound that was popular in 2010. And Slim Dunkin was kind of blending with that sound in 2010, doing some of that drill, but there's really not that much drill in this particular project. It seemed like he was trying to establish Debo from something different from like the drill type sound, because there's just a minimal amount of drill on this particular project, and for the most part there's not an overabundance of real nightclub type flair. There are stepping out and kind of strip club and nightclub type songs, but they're just in a more vanilla kind of packaging as far as that particular ousting point kind of goes with it. It's just kind of the concept that there are some ones on here, but if you're looking for like the full-blown craziness that Waka Flocka and Slim Dunkin normally get to off their more litty type nightclub type moments, this is not like a festive kind of complete orangutan disgnarled craziness of like a project in terms of that. I mean, it has the nightlife on here, but it's just kind of more vanilla and basic just within the ousting of that as to how that kind of goes. I would have to say it's interesting because I do think I heard Slim Dunkin say on this particular project that this is like Debo's first project, his first official project. So I'd have to say this is just the initial kind of throwing together of getting him as established as an artist. So he does have some hits on here, but terms of trying to establish him as to have some hits on his own, I'd say probably the closest probably songs that Debo establishes himself as far as hits on his own would have to be On Me and then Like This, some of those particular type ones. Those are just some of the particular pitches about it. Now, Slim Dunkin is on a lot of these songs. It's not just only Slim Dunkin songs or only Debo songs, even though they do that a couple of times. Just kind of the pitch of just being able to say that a lot of these are pretty established just as far as putting on like the next in line as far as that pitch kind of has with it. So some good concepts here. That's definitely a pretty quality mixtape. So there's not really a single on this particular project. Slim Dunkin didn't really bolster this project with a single or a street single, something like that. Slim Dunkin didn't really start putting out street singles till towards the end of his life as far as that pitch kind of has. But I would have to say I think Dunk, at least the Dunk remix and Dunk the original song, was like a street single, something like that. And then I know that Blindside from like Twin Towers 2 was an original single, but I'd have to say it's just the basic concept. This is just more underground mixtape type fare, establishing Debo, getting some further hits for Slim Dunkin, getting his catalog kind of fattened as far as that particular pitch kind of happens with it. But I would have to say, so basically out of 18 songs in this particular mixtape, I wound up recommending to you 14, more or less. The concept of it is there's at least 5 songs on this particular mixtape that are also on Menace to Society. One of those 5 I don't recommend. The only song out of those 5 from the only one of those songs from Menace to Society I don't recommend is just Hood Bitch. But other than that, the 4 songs that are off of Menace to Society that I recommend as almost songs would be basically I Go Ham, Dunk Remix, I Gotta Eat, and Hell Yeah. And basically Hell Yeah is actually on, I'm going to rephrase that. Hell Yeah is not actually on Menace to Society by Slim Dunkin. It's actually on Gucci Mane's Return to Mr. Zone 6 from early 2011. So it's a pretty good concept just because Gucci Mane was like Slim Dunkin's head honcho as far as that pitch happens with it. But basically you can find these songs elsewhere. So it's just kind of the concept. They're almost songs. But what I have to say, so I'm going to go ahead and there's really only 4 songs I don't recommend on here. So it's a pretty quality pitch just to say that there's a lot of stuff on here. It's just kind of the fact, I mean, you just have to understand that there are some quality songs on here, but it's just kind of more vanilla type stuff and just within that pitch. So this is a pretty fun and charming type project. It's just not as full blown gnarled and crazy as like it could get, just because this is just kind of establishing 2 careers, getting Slim Dunkin further and then getting Debo started as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. But it's a dope enough concept. So the 14 songs I recommend basically would be Nick After Nick, That's a No-Go, Like This, Legends, Faces, Gotta Get It, Death Around the Corner, On Me, NyQuil, and Just Another Day. And then the 4 almost songs would be I Go Ham, Dunk Remix, I Gotta Eat, and Hell Yeah. So to talk about some of these, basically one of the most immediate songs I would go for right away would be Nick After Nick. This is a pretty highlighted one. This is definitely like a pounding kind of hypnotic morose trap tune. I would have to say a good concept for that in particular. I'd have to suppose this is a good rousing kind of noisy evening starter of a song, I'd have to say. So it's a pretty dope concept. Get that one. Definitely one of the best beats on here. This one's just a real visceral type one on here. It makes sense to Walk a Flock of Flame drops a guest verse. It makes sense that Walk a Flock of Flame drops a guest verse on this particular song because it's definitely one of the mixtape's best. I'd have to suppose it's a real rousing type one that just has a lot of good night and kind of a lot of good night and just overall rave type energy. It's just a good party starter and kickstarter and stuff like that. I'd have to suppose pretty dope concept. Get that one in particular. Definitely some rave type stuff. Good, interesting type song to get Slim Dunkin, Debo, and Flocka all on. Just a good kinetic type pitch, I'd have to suppose. Real nice one. NyQuil is one of the best songs on this particular mixtape. Also, I'd have to say this is a pretty highlighted one. This is just a Slim Dunkin kind of solo song, but still pretty good pitch. This secures another hit for him just when he didn't have that many just early on in his career as far as that pitch kind of happens. I'd have to say this is like a syrupy kind of low-key mixtape ladies tune. I'd have to say pretty dope concept for that in particular. This is just a good song name. I'd have to say definitely like the concept of the topic of this particular song. It's just kind of a dreary late day Zaytoven bop, I'd have to say. So this is a dope concept to get this one out of Zaytoven. Definitely appreciate the concept of getting this one. It's a real nice highlighted lazy kind of mixtape ladies type fare as far as that pitch kind of goes along with it. It's a real nice one. Just has a good kind of electric and kind of hypnotic type pitch that's pretty addictive. I'd have to suppose this is a real nice one. Faces is another highlighted one. This is produced by Zaytoven. This is another highlighted pitch to get this one in particular. This is like a vanilla kind of nightclub outing of a song, I'd have to say. This is a vanilla nightclub outing of a song, I'd have to say. This has some basic bravado and lit energy mentality about it, I would definitely have to suppose. And this is just good for some fun times out, I'd have to say. So it's a pretty good concept to get that one. Just some good basic bravado and stuff like that. This is what I was talking about with some of this particular project. There's some songs on here like Gotta Get It, Faces, some of these type ones. I would say Legends is kind of one like that. They're just kind of more basic, kind of vanilla, kind of Atlanta type nightclub and strip club type tunes as far as that pitch kind of particularly happens with it. These are good songs, but the energy of them is more of like a 7, 8.5, 7.5 out of 10 in terms of relative pitches to how some of these kind of particularly kind of happen. I'd say there's probably another one that's like that on here, I'd say, but basically, like I was saying, the drill on this particular mixtape is kind of kept to a minimum. It's just kind of the concept that you do get some night outings type fare, but it's just kind of in a more basic vanilla kind of night as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. But some good concepts that say there might be another one that's like that, I'd have to suppose, but this is a pretty highlighted one. On Me is a pretty good highlight. I think On Me is a definitely pretty highlighted one. This is probably one of the bigger hits off this particular project. This one just has a little bit better bravado. I mean, it's very similar to Faces and Legends, I'd have to say, but this one just has a little bit more of like a more crisp. On Me just has a little bit more of a crisp type of appeal and this overall marketability, I would have to suppose, about this one in particular. This one's like a vanilla kind of revved up evening fare of a song, I'd have to say. This is just a basic quality DAP outing song, I would definitely feel like, and this is just good for some good lit times out, I'd have to say. So some of these ones are just some good night type fare. These are definitely some basic kind of performing type tunes to kind of get here. It's just kind of the concept. I do like these. They're pretty steadfast just within the intent and the overall atmosphere of them in particular. It's just kind of the concept. I mean, the thing about it that's just so odd is just because Slim Dunkin's normally a pretty crazed individual. He's like a southern fried version of like DMX and folks like that, I'd have to say. It's just kind of an interesting concept that he was just a little bit calmer on these particular type songs as he was trying to establish Debo, because I was just trying to figure out the thing about these initial Debo type songs is they don't really, I mean, I feel like this project establishes Debo in terms of his lyricism and stuff like that, but in terms of like the song type fare, he doesn't really have like a hit potential where it's just like, but in terms of like a song type fare, I feel like Debo's biggest moments in terms of songs where he was kind of show stealing and stuff like that, not like he outstripped Slim Dunkin full blown, but just the concept of some of these that I feel like could have been like some of his earliest type hits, I'd have to say, in terms of performability and stuff like that. I'd say On Me is a definite nice one for that. Like This is a definite nice one. Then Nick After Nick are some of the ones that established Debo the most in terms of like this more social outing and kind of night flash type fare as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. But some of these are just more vanilla and it's kind of more steady type ones. But I do feel like On Me is at least the one that rises above in terms of those three songs I listed, Legends, Faces, and On Me, has like the most appeal in terms of like night flash about it, I'd have to say. But there are some songs on here that kind of establish Debo as more of like a songwriter and like a mixtape type fare. It's just interesting that not all these are just like stepping out and kind of more social kind of weekend type flash. There's some songs like Death Around the Corner and Just Another Day that kind of do that. Death Around the Corner is a pretty highlighted one. This is like a brushy kind of cooler weather kind of paranoia of a song, I'd have to say. This song has character and it's just some late day malaise. I definitely appreciate this one. This just reminds me of something that Tupac would do in some of the Outlaws, some of those type folks as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. It's a real nice clever type one. This is a good concept to get Slim Dunkin and Debo on some of these type pitches because it's just pretty clever to get this in particular. Waka Flocka didn't normally do songs like this, so it's an interesting concept to get a song like this. It's an interesting concept to get a song like this that establishes Slim Dunkin and Debo as far as that pitch can happen, just with some extra character. Then Just Another Day is another highlighted one that kind of does that. This is basically like a surreal kind of quick times late day blear of a song, I'd have to say. Pretty dope concept to get that one in particular. This is just some big city pizzazz, I would have to say, and this song is just good for some groggy kind of ruminating. So I appreciate this particular one. There is some ruminating on here. It's not as, this mixtape is not as much of like a full blown kind of shot in the arm in terms of like a visceral kind of crazed energy. I'd have to suppose there's some extra concepts kind of get on here just for like some malaise and almost makeshift. I mean, it's not in touch. I wouldn't say it's full blown kind of blue collar makeshift, but definitely something if you just are getting done with class in like a more rugged type sense, or you're getting done with work in a more hustlers type mentality and stuff like that. There is a couple ones like I feel like Death Around the Corner, Just Another Day, or some ones like that. There's probably like another song on here. Hood Bitch is a pretty lackadaisical type. Hood Bitch is a pretty lackadaisical one, even though I don't recommend that one, I'd have to say. But there is like some basic kind of mild sense of makeshift on here, just not full blown within that pitch, I'd have to say. So that's a good concept for that. Like This is a pretty nice highlighted one. Like I was saying, this is one of the best songs on the particular mixtape that just has a lot. This is one of the best songs on the particular mixtape that just has the most litty kind of flash of just like gnarled pizzazz about it. I'd have to say this is a pretty nice one. This is like a litty kind of evening turn up of a song, I'd have to say. This is a getting ready for some crazy night type. This is definitely a song for getting ready for like a crazy night. I'd have to say pretty dope concept, get that one in particular. And this is just an energizing kind of trap starter of a song, I'd have to say. So I definitely appreciate this one. I'm glad that Debo is on this song, because sometimes this is kind of a collaboration mixtape, but sometimes it just kind of has like the energy just in different places as far as that pitch can happen. But in terms of getting like a kick-ass Slim Dunkin song and a kick-ass Debo type song that establishes both of them in like equal kind of capacity for like a full-blown night outing type hit, this is a good example. It's not like this project doesn't do that. It's just kind of the concept of some of these type ones are just, in terms of like the craziness, getting some of the biggest hits that Slim Dunkin was getting in 2010, like Swisher and I'm a Bugatti and some of those type ones, and you know, Dunkin, I Go Ham and some of those type pitches. Just a good concept, because this is one of those songs. Like, this is one of the best songs on this particular mixtape with the most visceral type energy. Nick After Nick, Like This, and That's a No Go are some of those songs that particularly kind of have that most gnarled kind of energy. But the thing about That's a No Go is that doesn't have Debo on there, so it misses an opportunity to establish him a little bit further. But at the same time, Slim Dunkin was kind of early in his career too, so he needed more hits. So it's just kind of concept about it. But that's the thing about Like This. That's a No Go is a pretty highlighted one. This has OJ the Juice Man on there, which is another Gucci Mane affiliate. He's pretty dope. I'm gonna have to get to some of his stuff, but this is basically like, That's a No Go is basically like a grim kind of ghastly trap turn up of a song. I'd have to say this is like a noisy kind of strip club and outing jazz of a song. I'd have to say, and this is just some lively kind of snap overall. I'd have to say, so it's pretty dope concept. Definitely appreciate the ghastliness of this particular one. This is the type of stuff that Slim Dunkin was on his Menace to Society mixtape, as far as that pitch kind of goes along with it. This is just another kind of ghastly, almost horrorcore like type trap music, as far as that pitch kind of happens. The sort of stuff that Waka Flocka and Gucci Mane were kind of doing around that time. So this is just vintage Slim Dunkin, I'd have to say, on here. Just a classic hit that bolsters his hit career, that just bolsters Slim Dunkin's repertoire as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. So it's dope enough concept. And I don't know if I talked about Gotta Get It. I don't remember if I particularly talked about this one, but I would have to say that Gotta Get It's basically like a nice hustle tune. I'd have to say it's like a basic kind of get to it and motivate type jazz of a song, I'd have to say. And this is just a good, decent kind of club hopper, I'd have to say. Pretty dope concept. Get this one in particular. This is another one I'd have to say. I don't remember if I talked about this one, but this is just kind of a highlighted type one to kind of get. This is probably like the fourth song I'd have to say that this is similar to, like Faces, Legends, and On Me, some of those type pitches, as far as that particularly kind of happens with it. Just another kind of vanilla kind of nightclub and just overall just another overall kind of vanilla nightclub and strip club type tune, just for some outing type fare. But this one's more of like a hustle type tune. I'd have to say this one's a little bit more motivational, has some good money. This one just has some good money getting pep and some stuff like that. But I still have to say it has some decent kind of nightclub kind of appeal. Gotta Get It has some decent kind of nightclub kind of appeal about it. So it's just a nice one to kind of have for money, and Gotta Get It's a nice one for business and pleasure, as far as that particular pitch kind of happens with it. So it's a good concept for that. So I'd have to say that's basically the particular mixtape as far as that particularly kind of goes with it. I'd have to say those are the 10 songs I recommend on here as far as that kind of happens with it. I'm thinking I did recommend all 10 of these songs. I mean, for the most part, I think I did actually do that. I want to say I recommended all 10 songs that I recommend that are the new songs, I'd have to say. So, but basically, talk about the 4 songs real quick that I don't recommend. Basically, just some of these, like Bout Them Hundreds is just a song by YC. I reviewed YC's mixtape from 2011 that had this song on it last year in early 2023. Just didn't enjoy that song that much. I think I used to, but I kind of grew past it a bit. Just doesn't have that good highlighted beat, I'd have to say. Daydream was just kind of a poor kind of video game like beat, I'd have to say. I would have almost liked that one possibly, but this was not quite catchy enough, I'd have to say. Hood Bitch was just kind of a clumsy type one. I mean, I respect the topic of a hood bitch and stuff like that. Definitely some kind of Travis Porter type boppish type. Definitely some kind of Travis Porter and Soulja Boy type boppishness that it has, but this was not quite appealing enough, and like the production, I'd have to say. Then favorite song was just kind of a dud of one that just didn't really have an interesting type production on there. So I'd have to say that's the basic concept. So me recommending more or less 14 songs out of 18, basically 10 full-blown songs I recommend, plus the 4 almost songs that are on Menace to Society and Gucci Mane's projects, as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. I'm going to go ahead and give this mixtape 14 out of 18. I'm going to go ahead and give this mixtape like a 9 out of 10. There's just that many good songs on here. Now, I realize that me only recommending 10 new songs out of 18, but I still would have to say the main thing about it is just the songs that I don't recommend, which is really just a minimal 4 songs. That's why I give it a 9. It has some quality on here. Does a pretty solid enough job of establishing Debo and bolstering further Slim Dunkin. I kind of feel like they probably could have done a slightly better. I feel like they probably could have done a slightly better job. I definitely feel like Slim Dunkin could have gotten more hits like Swisher and I Go Ham and some of those type ones, and I'm a Bugatti, some of that trap type energy and drill type energy. This wasn't on here that much. I mean, they really did not initiate Debo with some of those trap type tunes that heavily just right off the bat. There should have been a Lex Luger beat on here. There should have been like some Southside beats on here and some stuff like that, some of that type pitch that was popular in 2010 with Flockabilly, but they just kind of weaned Debo on this particular prospect a little bit slower possibly than what I would have wanted, but still 9 out of 10. I would say that the songs on here are quality. They're just a little bit more basic and kind of vanilla, I'd have to say, but the concept of it is still pretty solid. So the social score, as a result, I'm going to go ahead and give the social score like an 8 out of 10 just because of that concept. There are some quality hits on here. I'd have to say some definite kind of fiery type stuff in certain pitches, but like I said, the drill and the trap type tunes, they're like the full-blown carnivorous type energy that Waka Flocka and Slim Dunkin are known for more on their solo projects. It's just not on here in spades, I'd have to say. But there is some good, decent kind of bops, some vanilla type tunes for just stepping out in a more basic kind of, just not necessarily ho hum, but just kind of here and there type sense as far as that pitch can have. It's just some good night. I mean, it has a good taste of like some nightlife and stuff like that, but it's just kind of the concept is just not as full blown carnivorous. This is kind of the concept about it. But in terms of the future, that's difficult because Slim Dunkin is deceased and Derez Deshawn has continued to put out projects. He has a number of names. I'm going to get to some more of his projects. One of the last projects that Slim Dunkin did in his lifetime was Block Illegal 2, so there is a sequel to this particular mixtape. I'm going to get to that one down the road. There is some more. There's Dirt Gang projects. There's some Derez Deshawn type projects. Derez Deshawn dropped the Gangsta Grills in 2013 after Slim Dunkin's death. So there is some more stuff I'm going to get to definitely. But I would have to say this is a pretty quality mixtape. It's a pretty secret mixtape. There's not a ton of information about it. I don't think there's really any critic reviews for the most part. Maybe there were back on DatPiff back in the day, but that website is expired. So I'd have to say fuck with this particular project. I'm definitely going to review more of these, I'd have to say. And this is pretty much damn well highly recommended.